Brahman asked, "Holy Sir, also tell me how this dreadful darkness of ignorance disappears." The ignorance that we've been discussing is the ignorance that gives rise to the notion of an external world, a world out there which hijacks our attention. And along with that notion of an external world is the notion of an individual self, a doer, somebody who gets on with things. And how do we get beyond these notions? Vasistha said, "O Ram, even as darkness disappears on turning towards light, ignorance disappears if you turn towards the light of the self. As long as there does not arise a natural yearning for self-knowledge, so long this ignorance or mental conditioning throws up an endless stream of world appearance. Even as a shadow vanishes when it wishes to see the light, this ignorance perishes when it turns towards self-knowledge." So we turn towards the light of the self, which is obviously quite different from the notion of an individual doer. It's the light of our own self-awareness, of that by which we are conscious. Now, we just heard previously that the mirage does not disappear, and this endless stream of world appearance, it seems to be indicating here that it will vanish. It doesn't vanish. It's been established it doesn't vanish. So why is it saying here that it vanishes? Well, I'll address that towards the end of this chapter. But what we can say vanishes is the tendency, or the what actually vanishes is our getting hijacked or getting caught up in it. We no longer get caught up in it. Just as when we know a mirage is a mirage, we stop believing that it's going to satisfy our thirst. The mirage doesn't disappear, but we no longer see it as something enticing, as something that we want to get to. Rama, it is desire that is ignorance or mental conditioning, and the coming to an end of desire is liberation. This happens when there is no movement of thought in the mind. So it is desire that is ignorance. Desire is the assumption, it's even stronger than a belief, it's the assumption that we'll somehow find ultimate satisfaction by pursuing the things of the world, the apparent things of the apparent world. And it's desire that moves the attention. It's what motivates the attention to go here or to go there. And coming to an end of desire is liberation, and this happens when there is no movement of thought in the mind. Again, this isn't quite accurate. It happens when there's no movement of the attention, no automatic movement of the attention. The attention is no longer being hijacked. I'm tempted to say the attention is under control. But yes, it's like when a horse is reined in, and it can be used rather than the horse carrying us wherever the horse wants to go to. The attention can be reined in, and it can be directed to wherever it's objectively needed. Ram asked, "O sage, you have said that when ignorance ceases to be, there is self-knowledge. What is the self? Atman. The self is atman. So we're talking about self in quite a different way here. We're not talking about the personality, we're not talking about the individual psyche, we're not talking about the soul, the jiva, we're talking about atman. Vasistha replied, O Ram, from Brahma the creator down to the blade of grass, all this is nothing but the self. Ignorance is non-existent unreality. There is no second thing here known as the mind. So here we go, another exploration of what's meant by the word mind. There's no second thing here as the mind. In that self itself, the veil that is also of itself floats, creating the polarization of subject-object, and the infinite consciousness itself is then known as the mind. This veil is an idea, an intention, or a thought in that infinite consciousness. Mind is born of this idea or thought, and mind has to vanish with the help of an idea or thought, i.e., that is, by the coming to an end of the idea or thought. So this is an interesting one. As soon as there is an idea, as soon as there is thinking, it seems to almost be like a crystallization, and that crystallization is creates the whole subject-object duality, or the apparent subject-object duality. Mind is born of this idea or thought. Any idea or thought gives rise to the whole of this apparent duality between self and world. And it says here, mind has to vanish with the help of an idea or thought. We can follow that thought, the idea, to its source, to that within which it arises. And in that way, mind vanishes. It vanishes into pure awareness. The firm conviction that I am not the absolute Brahman binds the mind, and the mind is liberated by the firm conviction that everything is the absolute Brahman. This is again, this is a profound teaching which we need to be careful with. We're not into some sort of self-affirmation, telling ourselves that we are the absolute Brahman and kind of hypnotizing ourselves into believing that. What we need to look at is our intrinsic assumptions, the assumptions by which we filter everything from moment to moment. What is the tone? What is the colour of that filter? Is the tone and colour of that filter that I'm just a little self caught up in a big random world of violence and chaos? Or am I the nature of the infinite? That's what we need to look at. That's what's meant by conviction here. What is the underlying colour, the underlying tone by which we are filtering the field of experiencing? And the tone is could usually be classed under the heading, I am not the absolute Brahman. But if we can get in touch with that filter by which we're limiting ourselves, that filter by which we're limiting the experiencing, and we can understand that I am the absolute Brahman, or that everything is the absolute Brahman. We've got to be careful with the use of the word I here. Everything is the absolute Brahman. Then there can be a subtle turning around.